Here. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on local large language models for your organization. I'm delighted you can come along today. I'm delighted to have Daniel to share some of his experience as well too. How are you doing, Daniel? How's it going? Okay?
Yeah, all good, all good. Weather is not so good here in Portugal, but still it's warm and pleasant. How are you, Ross?
I have no sympathy for you in Portugal. I'm sitting here outside Dublin. It's a lot. I'm sure it's better where you are.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Nice location. So we will. I hope everybody is on board. Annie, just maybe I'll kick off. We've a lot of ground to cover, and we'll probably have to move quite quickly. So in some ways, we're only scratching the surface here, right? But but hopefully, look, we will be able to provide you with some guidance on choosing how important it is to choose the correct solution for your requirements, some approximate costs, and also some of the major pitfalls to avoid. There's a right way and a wrong way to go about doing this stuff, and we've learned from multiple projects, and Daniel in particular will share some of his knowledge, right? So just a bit as well, we will have a Q&A session after the presentation, and there's a comments there. You can put in any comments or any questions that you have, and also we will send out the slide deck tomorrow. And if you do require any further assistance after that, you can also just email myself or Daniel. Maybe give us some background on what your project is, what you're hoping to achieve, maybe what technologies, and hopefully we'll be able to help you. So just to kick things off, I'll just do a quick intro on my background, and then I'll ask Daniel to do the same and to kick off the presentation. So I've been in software development companies for way too long at this stage. Very, very brief history is I was with companies like Semaphore Europe. We did object-oriented analysis and design, training and consulting. I was with Iona Technologies. They had a Cobra implementation called Orbix. First company in Ireland to do an IPO on NASDAQ. My role was kind of global VP for professional services. And then I was VP for EMEA for both product and services. My own company, OrkidTech, is almost 20 years going now. And in a nutshell, what we do is we help our clients to build better software faster. And that we do that by providing technical expertise and resources, right? That's what we do. We have been partners with Ralabs for over 10 years now. We've worked together on many different projects. Now, I am delighted to hand you over to Daniel to do a quick intro and to get the presentation started. And we'll do the Q&A then afterwards, okay? Thanks, everybody. Now, Daniel.
Thank you, Ross. Glad to be here. I'm working with software and designing and developing for more than 15 years. Last 7 years, I'm working with Ralabs and as a head of engineering or head of technology. My focus is around software development, cloud solutions, and last years is around AI and ML. So today we will talk about generative AI and our experience and very, very high level cases and pitfalls and implementation tricks. Yeah, so let's proceed. So during our webinar, I will mention McKinsey. So it's a huge consulting company, already more than 30 years on the market. They're huge, and I very like their researches. Guys, you should read them from time to time. They are huge and full of great content. So McKinsey research says the generative AI size of the market will be doubled in next years. So you can see huge numbers of big market, and essentially we all can take some part of this market, and it's a big thing, as we all know. Simple guides to key term. Generative AI foundational models, large language models, and prompt engineering and fine-tuning. It's all like general concepts we will use. If you're online, and you can drop in the comments what term are less familiar to you, I will explain it more. But in general, generative AI is a type of AI that can create new content like text, code, images, or video. We all know this stable diffusion thing. We all know and heard about ChatGPT, Gemini, all these large language models. So essentially, it's a next step of ML, because previously it was very technical. It was needed to have a lot of experts who will be able to manage these. And large language models, or generative AI, is the next step, because it become much more simpler for anyone. Yeah. So essentially, we can we all aware of this hype, which was like on air previous year, and now we are on the stage when we have more or less clean understanding of what is generative AI, what are the limitations, and we currently see on the market realistic expectations from generative AI, from large language models. So we working on this, and like I will share some insights later. Foundational models, it's deep learning models trained on massive amounts of unstructured data, and mostly they are multimodal. Multimodal means that these models can generate not only text but images and other types of data. Large language models, in particular, focused on text generation, and like it's very good when you need to do some research or do some summary or do some predictions based on content you provide. And I think it's easiest way to start with ML on the so far. So currently, fine-tuning and prompt engineering is things which essentially related to how we're using models. So fine-tuning, it's when we have model, performance model, good one from the market, from some famous company, for example, Meta, but we can consider fine-tune it, and it's essentially costly and complex process when we train the model additionally, and the model become more flexible and more like focused on your tasks. And prompt engineering, it's essentially currently it's already a job, separate job when you can work with publicly available LLMs like ChatGPT or Gemini, and you can create prompts. So but like essentially you need to know linguistics and languages, and on the other side you need to know how the ML and the large language models work, and this gives you opportunity to create great prompts. So these main terms we will use, and also additional thing which needed to understand the further discussion is a Taker-Shaper model provided by McKinsey. So Taker is only usage of ready-to-use or ready-made AI models. No customization or very little customization. So essentially, we all do this when we use ChatGPT paid version, and we're creating own GPTs. And yeah, so it's utilization of generative AI, but with some limitations here, because someone managing the infrastructure and data of large language model because it's public. Shaper, it's more, it's the next level. Yeah, so if you're using this model, you're investing a bit more into infrastructure, into expertise, into systems you develop. And Maker model is a out of scope for our discussion because it's a very expensive way. It's essentially how big companies producing, like developing the models, or this is how big companies use large language models. So this way are quite expensive and need like tens or even hundreds of engineers to work on. So it's not suitable for small and medium sized business. So yeah, three models, and essentially based on these models, we can consider some range. Yeah, so cost of ownership. It's not conservative if we're talking about the way you can go with Ralabs and OrkidTech. It's first of all lower rates, yeah. So in comparison to US market, for example, and another thing is it is already implemented projects from our experience. Yeah, so we actually sharing on this slide our experience. So when you have taker model, essentially you can create some application. It can be in this simple case, it can be some backend, and you can integrate this backend with ChatGPT or any other publicly available model, and then build your product on top of that. Yeah, we have a lot of examples which doing analysis of hotels or some trips, or you can integrate and get recommendations about some food you eat, like you're making a photo of the food, and then ChatGPT or any other model returning you amount of calories, approximate one. Yeah, so such type of projects. Shaper, it's when you invest in infrastructure and in some services, some research, and actually implementing large language model yourself. Yeah, so with your team or with some external vendor. Yeah, so it's a one-time investment, can be in a range from 20K to 1 million, and then you have annual payments for the infrastructure and for something related to model performance in a timeline. And Maker, it's, as I said, it's a very expensive and complex approach, so we will not discuss it now. So how we start to play with generative AI, how it appeared. I will mention one example. It's simplified for this webinar, but I think you will get the idea. So our client, it's a law firm from US, and they have an issue with surveys. They need to pass compliance everywhere, and the amount of this compliance is growing. And this year, it was kind of 25 surveys should be filled, and some forms, some surveys, some reports should be filled based on internal rules and policies, security rules and policies related to credentials, access, badges, forms of authentication, access with badges, access to some premises. So it's sensitive information about organization, so it cannot be publicly available, or we cannot allow leak of this data to some public models. It's like very sensitive data, and the problem is that subject matter experts spending a lot of hours to fill these surveys manually. Essentially, you can use this approach for any of your project or any of your system to actually understand if you need to invest into generative AI and by what reason. Yeah, so this problem is a time and money reason, because like clients spending a lot of time of skilled expert to fill these forms, and these forms essentially similar. Yeah, they slightly changing from year to year, from auditor to auditor, but essentially it's the same questions. They can be answered easily with someone who knows these details. Yeah, and with the amount of 100 hours they spend annually to this, and rate of this expert into 100 hourly, it's 40K per year. Yeah, so for every year, company spend 40,000 to fill this service. What can be solution here? So we consider and come up with a solution that we set up AI-driven system. We feed all the data related to the security policies, regulations, compliance, all that internal stuff, which are sensitive. We want to ingest by this LLM we want to build, and all this data should be secured because it's sensitive, and a lot of other requirements it should fit. But the main thing is secure data and not a big amount or no hallucinations at all. So this was the main idea, and with this approach, we calculated that we can save from 400 hours, like 60% or even more. So it's approximately 325 hours, and annually we actually can save 32,000, and essentially this subject matter expert can focus on some strategic things and not spend time filling surveys. For this, we wanted to have very simple interface with chat. So essentially you drop the question there and then you're receiving answer, but based not only on the best practices and general knowledge, but also on internal organization data. And if to see to perspective of 3 years, it's clear that if amount of surveys and audits will not decrease, which is true, savings for 3 years will be even bigger. And also quite important thing, if your organization are not very mature with technology and you do not have established cloud infrastructure or infrastructure of ML for generative AI, that first step will need more investments. Yeah, but after that, you still be able to adjust the system or infrastructure you build. So essentially, when you considering some one product and one solution you can implement. For generative AI, it's true that you can reuse it and you can build a similar system, reuse some components of the system, integrate with them, and use like microservice, for example. So it's from like, I think you got the idea. From one side, it can be necessary to invest more, but after it's implemented, you can reuse it. Yep. So we consider two options: old school approach when you set up the server, when you set up all dependencies, Python, embeddings, vector storage, all that stuff under umbrella of private GPT or similar solutions. They are available on GitHub. Private GPT was most popular with the biggest amount of stars and contributors. So we chose this approach. It's open source, so it's free for use, and you can play with it whenever you want. And another approach is a serverless approach. When you do not set up any servers, you just clicking some interface and choose what you want to use, and it all run under the hood on some cloud provider like Azure or AWS. Yeah, we considered these two options for this project. As I said, the biggest concern is security and privacy, and as in a scope and of requirements here, it was we clarified on the different platforms that data which will be provided by client will not be available to customers, third parties. No models will be learned using this data, and so on and so on. So it's completely secured. It's a requirement that it's actually a feasible thing we can do. Another thing is like comparison of these platforms. I will not stop on this table in details. We will share this presentation after the webinar. And if you will have any questions, please find us in LinkedIn and we can discuss. In this table, essentially, we have Azure OpenAI, AWS Bedrock as two main competitors and two simple ways to start. And three other columns with serverless framework with custom backend or Google Cloud or Azure Functions with Azure Machine Learning. That's a more complex thing. So it's harder to set up and harder to maintain and more costly. But yeah, we stopped on Azure OpenAI and AWS Bedrock. Another thing to choose and consider is models. So what I liked in Azure AI Studio a lot, that they have the page where they dynamically update metrics of performance of different models. So you have a very good interface and you can compare models in there. Additionally, Azure OpenAI had the biggest amount of models available, including OpenAI models at GPT 4, GPT 3.5, GPT 4.0. And when we worked on this webinar, OpenAI released this GPT 0.1. So these models are high performant. They're providing quite good results. And as I said, you can additionally train these models, and you also can build RAG. RAG is a retrieval augmentation generation. I will talk about this thing a little bit more on next slides. So yeah, Gemini, Cloud, Llama from Meta, Titan from AWS. We tried all of these. For this particular project, for this particular task, they providing good results. I will explain how we analyze the quality of the results. But another important thing here is actually the prices and expenses you can expect when you choose the model. Yeah. So for example, if you will choose GPT 4.0 mini, so far for us it was most cost-effective model because like the price of processing are low and you do not need to set up like very powerful, huge computing like power or server, and it will not cost a lot for GPT 4.0 mini. For example, for this project, the estimated cost was 300 for months. So 300 for months of usage, it's not a high price. But we also set up the Llama 3 from Meta and the simplest computing power, simplest server we will need it to process at the cost of $18 per hour. So it's a huge difference between the models, and you should be careful when you choosing the models and when you're talking with your experts who are working on this, you should take this into account. Best practices. When you start such project, you need to ensure that you define clear goals. It means that when you expect some answers or predictions from your LLM, you need to check the quality of the answers. Also use only quality data. We mean the data you will feed into the large language models, or your data based on this data, LLM will answer your questions. So if you have some discrepancies or ambiguity in your documentation or in your data, you can expect that model will also answer not as you expect. Implement reg, so it's it's very fast. So I think half year ago in ChatGPT it was not really possible to upload some documents or give some context, but then they implemented this, and it's a quite good thing because you can enrich the generation with data you provide if simplify this. Apply relevant metrics. It's for long term because on long term you need to monitor your model and your system. And ensure scalability and low latency. It's like for any IT system, it should have some limitations on response and so on. So we have a very basic diagram. By the way, on pages of our slides, you will see this link to the source, and we will share it, and you can gain the context from which it was get. So diagram. It's a simple representation of how system can work. The request or question goes from the user. It goes from the cache. If there are some cached response already, it will be returned to the user. If no, it goes to the context construction. And essentially here you can use your knowledge base or your data, and you can kind of mix it into the knowledge of your model. Then you have quite interesting two things. It's input guardrails and output guardrails. So input guardrails, it's when you providing some document, and this document, for example, can have personal identifiable information like someone's name or address or phone number or email or whatever, and you can set rules. So this data will not go inside the model, and like when you have next iterations, you will never receive answers with this data. And output guardrails, it's essentially filtering of what model can generate to you. And if, for example, you will set rules to not return answers with some particular words or with some particular meaning, these guardrails will ensure this. And then it returns back to the cache. Yeah, so like question we asked pass through the system, we return the prediction or an answer, and then we cache it, and then we return it to the user. So it's very simple one. Hope it makes sense.
Daniel, can I just ask you one question regarding the guardrails? Do they, in terms of GDPR, do they you can protect personal data and all that stuff as required using those guardrails? Correct? Would that be correct? Yeah.
Yeah. It's related to GDPR or whatever regulation you need to comply with. So there are a lot, and there are maybe tens of different compliances, and that also depends on a domain or direction you're working. So, for example, if you're working with a healthcare, these guardrails should be much more stricter. So yeah, cool. It's So first implementation was with a private GPT. So essentially, we set up the Ubuntu server quite with a huge amount of RAM and a lot of CPUs. So quite high performant server, and it was a bit costly. I can't recall the particular number, but it's something around $500 per month. We set up the models, vector storages, embeddings, and UI, because it all goes out of the box, and you only need to set up and integrate this with each other. It worked well. It was able to provide answers, but we noticed that the load to the system is quite high, and we also estimated the maintenance cost, and it was really high. Yeah, and when you consume the data you provide with embeddings and building vector index. It's also high performant operation. So during this consumption, like using this reg mechanism, server was always overloaded, and it was not like we understood that we need more compute power for this setup. So to summarize, we decided to not go with this approach because it's too costly and need too much hassle with command line and monitoring and all that stuff. Another approach was Azure OpenAI, and as I said, at the end of the day we went with this approach. We used and we tried with ChatGPT 4o and 4o Mini with Phi 3 Mini. Phi 3 Mini, it's Microsoft, like it's a model originated by Microsoft. Under the hood, they providing vector storage, embeddings. They have UI with a chat, with other things to manage, like you maybe see on the screen. So it's a playground in Azure, and I think it's the best so far on the market. Azure was not super stable. We had issues with rate limit and with some limitations related to the region. So it has different availability zones, and like depending where you set up the system, for example, in Frankfurt or in San Francisco or in New York, it's different. Yeah, so the setup and the models available are different, and you need to know this or just to experiment. But overall, it was really great. It's interesting experience, and as I said, you can also always go and see every new model on the market to see and compare with other models. So, like Azure was our best choice here. Third implementation was with AWS Bedrock. It was with almost the same setup. It's also possible to set up knowledge base in there. In general, it was more stable, so we never experienced any errors or limitations on AWS, which was pleasant. At the same time, they do not have such a great list of models available. Unfortunately, maybe they will acquire more and make them available. But for example, this OpenAI, I think it's like OpenAI models exclusively available on Azure. I'm not sure for 100%, but yeah. Other things was very pleasant and good. So if someone will ask me what will be the second choice after Azure, it will be AWS for sure. Here on this screen, you essentially can see we played with knowledge base and we feeded some data and we answered some questions. And here you can see this temperature slider. It's essentially scene responsible for hallucination or creativity. So you can set up the temperature and regulate actually your expectations. Another trick I learned, and it's quite funny, that you can just write in your prompts something like, please do not hallucinate. It sounds funny, but sometimes it worked. Yeah. Okay. Best practices for assessment. So essentially, when you assess the results of your predictions, which are returned by generative AI, you need to check these 5 things, like they are related to model, to the quality of answers. It's coherence, logic, relevance, accuracy, and completeness. So it's like with any dialogue, even with a living person. Yeah, when you hear someone say something, you can assess it. It sounds simple, but as you can see, it's not super simple. Response time is stuff related to performance of the system. Yeah, so it's not related to the performance of the model. So performance of the model is not, it's not like how quickly a model responds. Performance of the model is actually this metrics. Yeah, so coherence, logic, relevance, and so on. So you need to ensure that you set this before you started the work on generative AI, and you have, for example, a set of data and a set of possible answers, and then you iterate, interact with your model, and then you validate if these answers are valid. Sorry for tautology.
Is this, Daniel, I'm sorry, just one quick question in terms of the setup. Is that, how difficult is it, or how long is that a part of the project in terms of the actual getting all that assessment of those in place, first of all?
You mean how technically to set up this assessment, or?
Yeah, just in terms of being ready, have those, the coherence and the relevance, accuracy, all that stuff, or whatever, done up front. Is that, how big a part of the project is that, or how time consuming, I guess?
Yeah, so it depends of, first of all, it depends on the size of your data. Yeah, so if you have a big data set and you have a lot of things to check, for sure you will spend like many hours to fill some like key values. Yeah, so for example, you have some question and then you expect some answer. Yeah, it can be not identical in terms of symbols, but it can be identical in terms of what will be returned. So yeah, and like for medium, small size companies, and if you do not have like terabytes of data, I think you can spend 1 or 2 weeks to go through it. Yeah, it will not be like the whole amount of work, like dry. Yeah, but from my experience, it can take 1 or 2 weeks to set up these rules or expectations.
All right, thanks.
Good. Automated checks, why we need them? Because on long term, you will not go and check manually. Yeah, if your model performant, if it return results you expect, you will need to check to set this. So it will be kind of automatic checks, like you doing some changes, for example, you're upgrading something, and then you need to check if nothing changed. You also can set these checks in relation to the data you have. If your large language model continuously gaining some knowledge and receiving some data through some ETL process, you need to continuously check if results are good. And Azure AI and Azure AI Studio and AWS Bedrock have tools in place, so you can automate it, and it's already possible to use. What can go wrong? So when you made this, you created the system, it works as expected, it's saving time for creativity, for some strategic things, and 1, 2, 3 months can pass, and you can notice some issues. And you can notice that your model started to return some unexpected answers, or the quality of answers degraded. What can happen? Essentially, I highly recommend the webinar or lecture from MIT. It's linked here. So essentially, they collected a lot of different fuck-ups and issues they had, and they explained them. So I had big pleasure to watch. And I remember the one case they mentioned. Like after 3 or 4 months of using some generative AI system they developed, it started to degrade. So the system was for avatars to recognize if image uploaded by user is avatar or it's some random image. And after several months, they noticed that system not always answer correctly. And they investigated it, and they understood that new iPhone went to the market, and it started to produce images with higher quality, with bigger size and bigger dimensions. And the model which they used was trained on smaller pictures with some previous generation of devices. And model was not able to process these new images. And they made adjustments. They trained model additionally with new big images with new devices. And then model get back on track and started to perform. So you need to ensure that degradation will not appear. You need to avoid hallucinations. Yeah, so too much creativity and invention of things which are not exist. And security risk, like for any system, like the general idea of local LLM system is that you're not using public ChatGPT, but you're using and have your system, your data under your control, and you can additionally encrypt this. You can implement whatever you want, but cloud provider will guarantee this data will be safe. And additionally, you can also consider some backups, and you can also consider some monitoring, logging, CI/CD if necessary. So all other things you can build on top of the innovation. And to finalize on with this slide, I think maybe in next years, a lot of things I explain now will become commodity. So it will not contain innovation. Currently, it's innovation because serverless approach, generative AI, it's a thing which become popular, and currently we can gain something, gain some performance or save some time from that. Yeah, and it's quite important topic. Yeah. So I think we can summarize. AI is a big trend. Generative AI is the next step, makes AI very popular and accessible. Environment and landscape changing and evolving quickly. So as I said during we work on this webinar, OpenAI released GPT-01, which is another deal breaker. And just yesterday, let me check. I experimented with another new thing from Google. They released a thing which named Notebook LM. I will drop in the chat. So it's another interesting thing I found. So it's essentially huge thing which consume a lot of data, and then help you with the research. So again, very similar to what I explained and to systems we built and building currently. But yeah, also good one and quick one. With solutions, I think Azure OpenAI currently is a leader on the market, and they essentially compete. Google, Amazon, Azure, Microsoft, they compete with each other. They're trying to create new things and run with new endeavors and new products around that. And I think quite the next move can be local LLMs on your mobile devices. I know that Meta working on this, and I expect that it will be focused on forms. Yeah, we all know systems when we need to fill huge, boring forms, and I expect that in particular LLMs will be used for this. So essentially, if, for example, you know all your demographical data and personal data, and it's all saved in the phone, it can be filled by the LLM. Yeah, so these systems will develop, and choosing the right model and consistently monitoring its answers. Quality of these answers and performance are essential for long-term success. So as I said, you need to ensure if you not only build the system, but it also performs over the time. I think that's it. We can go to the section of questions.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, thanks, Daniel. That's brilliant. and it gives a good summary of how to go about, how to get started. There's a lot of questions. In some ways we're only scratching the surface. If anybody else wants to, I see Nick has already added a question there, so I'll read that out maybe. And if anyone else wants to add any comments, I also was emailed a question or two there a minute ago. So Nick, first of all, thanks for texting in there. So basically, you covered server-based and serverless approaches with cloud providers or own infrastructure. But he was wondering, what's your opinion of using OpenAI versus versus API directly for generative?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for question, Nick. It makes sense. We essentially developed project using OpenAI API. Yeah, and if you do not have any particular requirements for AI, it's essentially the simplest way possible to integrate and to interact with LLM. So this is actually from what you can start, but then some specific requirements can appear. Yeah. So for example, maybe in 80% of requests we receive from potential clients of our existing clients, it's a request about what will be with the data I will share to the model. And if, for example, you're using OpenAI as an API and you're providing some data even as a questions, this data will be used to teach their own models. So essentially, this data will be available for other users, which can be not interesting for you, or you can have these limitations. So, for the simplest usage and for a lot of tasks, it's a perfect choice to start with OpenAI integration. And again, you need to be careful with budget and amount of requests you send. Yeah, because OpenAI using pay-as-you-go model, and it depends on the amount of tokens you send and receive. And if you will, for example, start to use ChatGPT as a database, for example, you will drop the request and say, please return the list of cities in the United States. Yeah, and it will return the list of cities. It will be in JSON, for example, or something. And if you will use ChatGPT or OpenAI as a database, it will be very costly. So it means that every user will go to your web page or some application page and will do the request to ChatGPT, and they will charge you. And we had cases when our clients get a check for $4,000 from OpenAI because of incorrect approach, I would say. Yeah. Hope this makes sense.
Thanks, Nick. I've got a few questions I was emailed in here from John just a second ago. So I've added one in there. I'm just going to add the second one. So if you want. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for asking.
So the question was about the SaaS product. I'm not sure because I lost the connection and maybe I missed it. Yeah.
Can you see that one here, Dave? Will I read out the question? Oh, no, sorry, yeah. Federico. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So question from Federico. How can this be applied to build a SaaS product? This question, yeah? Ross? Yeah.
Yes.
So two ways, again. One way, you can just use Gemini or ChatGPT or any publicly available model. You can register, connect your card, choose the approach, and that's it. If you want to build a system where your data will be isolated and you will not use no one will be able to use your data except your or your organization. For that case, you can actually build this, build the project based on this. And like, if we're talking about SaaS product, essentially, I do not see a big difference with any other SaaS product. So if you're thinking about some particular idea of what can or cannot be implemented, I can share it. But essentially, for me, generative AI is a +1 tool or +1 system I can use, so like quite kind of similar to, I don't know, systems of some monitoring or systems which sending emails and so on. So it in terms of SaaS system, it can be just +1 integration. Yeah, and like we can share more examples of how it can be done. Essentially, on the Ralabs site website, we have a few examples, and you can go and check them. Okay, next question. I think you had some questions in.
Yeah, here I'll read it out. Apologies. How ones I was sent in two from John earlier. How can organizations balance the cost of developing and maintaining an LLM model with the potential benefits, particularly in the long run?
Let me think. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing actually I described. The first way which you can consider is to set up the infrastructure and have experts who can manage this. And then essentially you can utilize this existing system to integrate with your different projects. For example, for one of our clients built the LLM self-hosted. Then they fine-tuned it and ingested some company-related data in there. And currently they using this LLM to make advices. Yeah, so they have discussions with their client. They're recording these discussions. They convert these discussions into the text, and then they doing kind of recommendations based on these discussions. Yeah, and there are a series of prompts, and the system generates this. But also, this system as a knowledge base and generative AI, which can respond with some meaning to questions. It's essentially a knowledge base for their expertise also, because they have a huge expertise and a lot of researchers historically. And currently they also building another integration to this same LLM, but with different purpose. They want to use it as a knowledge base. So when you build some foundation, you can actually decide how exactly you can use it and for what purpose. That's the way to manage this.
Great. Thanks, Daniel. And the other question I was given in, I'll just read it out there, is security related. So given the security concerns mentioned in the presentation, how does a local LLM solution ensure privacy and security, especially in industries that handle sensitive data like healthcare or finance, basically?
Two things. One thing is a general compliance. Yeah, so if you own any medical system or you build any medical system, you should be compliant. There are GDPR, there are HIPAA, there are CCPA, high trust in US, and there are a lot of them. It's if it's finance system, it's SOC2, and this family PCI DSS compliance. So there are a lot. And as for any other project which involves the code, REST APIs, integrations, I don't know, SSL certificates, you need to be sure, and the industry standard is to pass penetration testing and security audits at least once a year, annually. So you need to ensure this yeah, and you need to set up the process around that to regularly go and check, because if your system is not stable and you still developing it, you adding new features, you making some pivot or whatever, it's not static. So you need to continuously check the security and ensure all the things, encryption in transit, encryption at rest, how it's connected, and so on and so on. So like all WSP recommendations. So there are a lot. And another thing is essentially security of the data you feed to the model. And as I said, if you don't want your data will be publicly available, you need to ensure that these data go inside your large language model, which should be local. In this case, in the nutshell, it's just servers, connections, TCP/IP, all that stuff. So you just need to ensure this system is related and all the data, all the knowledge are preserved.
Okay.
That's the way.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks again. I think if anyone has any other questions, put them in the comments there. And as I said, we will send out the slides tomorrow. If you want, you can, our emails are up there at the moment. Anyway, you can see them on the screen. If you want to ask any questions or you require further help, just please, if we can help, we're happy to help. So I think that's it on the Q&A. Just want to thank everybody, first of all, for coming along today. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you got a few tips and insights from Daniel. Thanks, Daniel, for sharing your knowledge. And I would also like to thank Sophia and Stasia particularly as well too for all the help they've done in putting this webinar together. So I think that's about it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Daniel. And yeah, just follow up with us whenever you want, or if you have any other questions. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Talk to you again.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.